And what is going on, New York Giants fans? AGP back again with another New York Giants video. This was supposed to come out like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday-ish. This will come out probably on Saturday. Thank you guys for coming back and subscribing once again. I'd like to thank the viewers who viewed one of the last videos, which was the 26-man roster prediction for the New York Yankees. I really haven't done the greatest job of reaching out to the Yankees community and really interacting with the content creators, and the fact that that is my most viewed video and not live stream, I'm talking video, the fact that it is the most viewed on my channel right now, I really appreciate the people, even if you're not Yankee fans, even if you're not baseball fans, for at least checking that out, liking it. Even if it's a dislike, it's engagement, and I really appreciate it. So in this video, I will be basically going over the free agency period for the New York Giants. They did a lot of unexpected moves, and they really didn't come into the free agent period with a lot of cap space, but they did what they could, and I really think it's been a good offseason. I'll give a grade at the end. I'll tell you what I did like, what I didn't like, and obviously you'll know at the end. I'm not going to go in any specific order, so you guys are going to see the moves in no specific order, ranging from dates and any depth player signings. You'll see all the depth player signings and any signings the Giants made this offseason. And I'm not really going to grade the release of Golden Tate, Kevin Zeitler, and David Mayo. I'm not going to grade the Dalvin Tomlinson thing, how the Giants let him walk. I'm not going to grade that because, why would you grade someone getting released or someone walking in free agency? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So anyway, let's go on to our first signing, or at least the first signing of this video, and I'll tell you what I think of it. The grade will be on the board as well as a profile. So here we go. Okay, so here is Leonard Williams, and a little bit of an issue I do take to this signing and just the background of it, and I will admit it, I'm not going to hide behind a screen or anything like that, is that it took a bit to get him an extension. And it's not just, it took him a bit. That's not really the reason. The reason is that Leonard Williams was saying, I want $25 million a year. He was really commanding pay for someone who didn't deserve it. And Williams, he's a football player. I'm not, and I'm not at the negotiating table with the New York Giants. But in terms of 2020, he didn't necessarily have, an Aaron Donald season of 20.5 sacks. And listen, I understand Leonard Williams had a career year. But even before he had the career year, he was not putting up the stats worth $20 million, $25 million a year. Now, with that being said, I grade this as an A- because of the salary in 2022 and 2023. Though, with the increase in the salary and the cap hit for Leonard Williams, the NFL has signed a TV deal which will probably increase the amount of cap space, so I think the Giants took advantage of that and started backloading contracts. And depending if they start winning, I think that they could either gain from it or they could either lose from it, and it will set total hell, or it could, just make fans happy and we'll be winning and we won't have to worry about some of these guys because we could just draft over them. We could, sign them to extensions. We'll see what happens in the future. But, I've talked about it with a lot of content creators. I've talked about it with a lot of people. I really wanted Leonard Williams back. And if there was a player, in the situation of Leo or Dalvin, I'll take Leo any day. I love Dalvin. He's a Minnesota Viking now, so we can't do anything about that. But Leo offered more on the field. He was double-teamed a lot. He, got interior pressure. And obviously this goes with, the coaching of Patrick Graham, Sean Spencer, him training with Richard Seymour. There's a lot that goes into that. But the stats he put up are terrific stats. And once again, he had a career year, and he really deserved to get paid. So that is why I give an A- to the extension of Leonard Williams. Alright, so Kenny Golladay. This is the move that the Giants were not expected to make. All the beat writers, all the fans were saying, the Giants are not going to make this move. They were not expected to make this move, and they made the move anyway. I'm really happy with it. It's an A-. The minus part probably comes to, I would grade it an A+, but the A-, and I'll explain it in just now. Obviously, again, the salary in the next couple of years with the $21 million. And it's not like he doesn't deserve high pay for his production over the last couple of years. It's that, it's $21 million, and you are setting the market for potential wide receivers in the future to get this type of money. And, a lot of wide receivers will look at these contracts and say, hey, Kenny Golladay got paid $21 million in 2022. I don't think that's going to happen. They could use that as an example. They could say, hey, he got paid this many millions of dollars in 2022. I deserve more than he does. With that, I'll take another negative on the Golladay signing is the fact that he is coming off an injury. If I'm going to be honest with you, I think it is a hamstring injury. I don't know if it's not a hamstring injury. I'm not sure which injury it is, but it caused him to be out 11 games last year, and it ruined his season. Nonetheless, when he played in 5 games, 20 receptions, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, he's a big yards per reception guy. He's a big yards before catch guy, 16.9 yards per reception. So with that, I grade it as an A-. The Giants, at this point in the game, with some of the signings they made in free agency, they could definitely go out in the draft and select the best player available with cornerback, with wide receiver, whoever's on the board, and whoever the Giants feel is best to add to their roster with the 11th overall pick. I think that definitely puts the Giants in a good situation, and I think this is one of the reasons. So as for the Golladay signing, I'll give it an A-. Okay, so this is the IFEADI ODENIGBO signing. I give it a B+. This is more of a, I would say, depth signing. He's not going to, start every game. And I'll go into why and, basically what he could have a role on the defense and stuff like that. So, IFEADI ODENIGBO, he's played 2 years with the Vikings the year before that, a little bit with the Cardinals, not too much. So, he played 15 games last year, 35 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 15 quarterback hits, 26 quarterback pressures, 65% of defensive snaps. Now, Danielle Hunter was out an extensive part of 2020 last year. Yannick Ngakoue was not even traded mid-season. I think he was traded like 5 games in. So the role IFEADI ODENIGBO had to play was the number 1 rusher. And that's something that IFEADI ODENIGBO can't play. And I understand that. Some of these guys in the NFL, no matter the pick or the draft round they were selected in, some of these guys are not ready for those roles. And IFEADI ODENIGBO was not ready for that role, hence his production. Nonetheless, even if he was ready for such a role, the defense on the back end for the Minnesota Vikings wasn't good. And going back to his 2019 season, he sacked Daniel Jones, but also he was not the number 1 rusher. Danielle Hunter was there. They had a couple other guys on that defensive line. They had a good defense. I think at that time they made the playoffs, but unfortunately this season they didn't. Going back to that season, though, he had 7 sacks, so he only played like 49 or 44% of the defensive snaps in 2019, but he put up 7 sacks, and that's good because if you have someone like a Kyler Fackrell, and I'll get into it in a minute because IFEADI ODENIGBO is not his replacement. I ultimately thought he would be in a sense, but he's really not. So with Kyler Fackrell, he didn't play a lot of the defensive snaps. Like, I don't know the exact number, but he didn't play 90% of the defensive snaps. That just, they rotated linebackers with Carter, with Zimenez, and all these other guys. But he put up 4 sacks. So that's good production for Fackrell. Unfortunately now he's with the Chargers, but the Giants, I don't think, wanted to re-sign him anyway. So let me get to this, what role is he going to play on the defense thing, because it plays a lot into B.J. Hill and R.J. McIntosh. Now, you could play B.J. Hill at the nose tackle. You could probably do the same thing with R.J. McIntosh. But the primary position in years past for B.J. Hill is defensive end, 3-4 defensive end, which is not, rushing the passer on the left side. It's more of interior as well, in a 3-4 defense, especially the way, Dexter Lawrence was playing or where he was playing. Same thing with Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, the rotation like that. So, IFEADI ODENIGBO, in my opinion, this signing really takes away from the potential B.J. Hill could have on the field. Now, is IFEADI ODENIGBO going to make the roster? We don't know. It's only $2.5 million in 2021, so he could easily be cut. I don't know if there's a post-June 1st cut. I don't know that stuff. I would probably have to look it up. But knowing the production he had in Minnesota and knowing how good a defensive coordinator Patrick Graham is here, I think that Odenigbo's production will actually, thrive with a better working secondary, with, talent around him on the defensive line. He's not the number one rusher. So I think he has a lot of room to flourish. Now, is he going to be the 7-sack guy he was in 2019? Absolutely not. But in terms of playing time, I think he will definitely maximize the most of it. So, in my opinion, B+ grade. I'm not going to give it an A or an A- because it is kind of a depth signing. But, this guy can compete for a roster spot, and he showed production in the past if, there's time in the secondary and if he defeats blocks up front. And one thing also to add before we go to the next guy is that he is double teamed a lot. And that's something you see a lot on the Giants defensive line. So, IFEADI Odenigbo, B+ signing. On to the next guy. So the next signing is Mike Glennon. Not too much to talk about here, but he's been a starter all over the place. He's a journeyman quarterback, and he's not necessarily the greatest mentor to a quarterback, but he is good, and I consider him an upgrade over Colt McCoy. Now, Colt McCoy did win against Seattle Seahawks last year. Glennon was 0-5 in all of the games he started for the Jacksonville Jaguars last year when Gardner Minshew was out and Jake Luton was not ready. But 5 games, 111 for 179, 62% completion, 1,072 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So that's not bad. I don't watch quarterback film, so I can't say, what his footwork looks like or any of that stuff. But in terms of that, I think this is a good signing. I definitely would not have a problem if the Giants retained Colt McCoy and did not sign Glennon, but McCoy could be the backup in Arizona if he is not already. But for Glennon, I think this is a good signing, and I think his prior experiences could definitely help Daniel Jones develop. And one thing that a lot of Giants content creators talk about is, the Giants needed to get a backup quarterback, but in terms of that, someone who's not going to steal the job from Daniel Jones. They need to be put in the role as the backup, not someone who will potentially in the future take Daniel Jones' job, like a Tyrod Taylor, like a possible Jacoby Brissett. Glennon, he's not the greatest backup quarterback in the world, but he will suit for the time being. He was signed to, I believe, a 1-year deal. So, B+, backup quarterback, so not bad for the Giants. On to the next signing. So here we have Ryan Anderson, and this has to be one of my favorite depth signings other than someone like IFEADI Odenigbo. Ryan Anderson, he never got a fair chance. And, I'm not a film analyst, I'm not, an expert, but just judging by the snap counts over the years he's played in his career, he played 49% of the snaps in 2019. The Redskins or football team defense was not as good as it was in 2020. Nonetheless, was it as stacked? Absolutely not. And that is the most snaps he ever played in his career. Look at 2017, 2018, 2020. All the percentage of snaps are in the teens. And that's unfortunate because when he had his big year in 2019 with most snaps and like 49% of the snaps, what happened was he produced. He had, I believe, 4 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, something like that. So definitely he knows how to produce if he gets the playing time. And this effectively is Kyler Fackrell's replacement. And I like the replacement because he is cheaper. I know it's not necessarily correct of, the 2021 cap hit. That's at least what I got, but I know there's like signing bonus involved and stuff like that. But I definitely think this is Kyler Fackrell's replacement. It adds competition to the outside linebacker room, definitely with like guys like Lorenzo Carter, Shane Ximines, and all the other guys. So definitely, I do like this signing. This has to be one of my favorite depth signings. And, learning from the guys in Washington, learning behind guys like Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan, I think Anderson, with playing time, has room to flourish. So B+ for Ryan Anderson. On to the next guy. Okay, so a lot of Giant fans will probably hate me for this one, but nonetheless, what you get on Big Blue in the Bronx is my opinion and also the facts. So, Dory Jackson, C+ signing. He was signed to a 3-year, $39 million contract with signing bonuses and incentives and all this other great stuff involved. My problem is that the Giants committed to him long-term in a 3-year contract. Why do I have such a problem with that? I have a problem with that because he is coming off an injury, A. B, he showed in Tennessee he was not the value of a first-round pick, 17th overall in the 2017 draft. That's what bothers me. It's kind of like, and I really don't want to compare it to this, but it's similar to when the Dolphins fired Adam Gase and the Jets picked him right up, though the options were there. And, I'm not saying Adoree Jackson's Adam Gase at cornerback. I really want Adoree Jackson to succeed. I really do. But some of the stats in the past that I've seen, he's not the greatest. And I really hope that this coaching staff can coach him up. I really hope the Giants made the right decision in making him the cornerback too. I would still draft a cornerback in the first, second, third, fourth rounds, whatever. I would still draft depth or even a possible starter there. But it just really bothers me and boggles my mind why the Giants would commit. Now, if it was a one-year deal, if it was a prove-it deal, I would not have a problem with that. But, stuff like this, it just makes me shiver. And I've heard mixed reviews from Titans fans, and I know people have said, don't listen to opposing fan bases. They're only guiding you in the wrong direction. Nonsense, because, stats and film doesn't always say everything. The eye test does. And if Titan fans see Adoree Jackson intercepting passes or they see him getting beat on deep passes, they'll say it and they say, hey, this is what you're going to get out of this guy. So in terms of 2020, he only played 3 games, 12 tackles, 13 for 16. That means quarterbacks completed 13 passes on 16 targets, allowed an 81.3 completion percentage. That's basically, if you do the math, 13 divided by 16. He allowed 3 touchdowns with a 145.8 passer rating. I think he gave up like 300-something yards. If it wasn't that, I hope to be corrected. And then 11.7 yards per completion. I forgot to put the yards there, but 11.7 yards per completion. So I really want to see him do well in New York. I'm not rooting against him. I'm not one of those Giants fans that hopes to be right every single time. But off the bat, this is not the greatest, and this is not the best signing, in my opinion, because of the committal and what he's coming out of in Tennessee. Sure, last year was bad defense, but you know what? The fact that they released him for a reason. And I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. So on to the next guy, C+ for Adoree Jackson. So John Ross, not much to talk about here. B-. He was a bust in Cincinnati. I think it was like 2016 and 2017. He was like the 9th overall pick. Wide receiver, I believe, out of Washington, I want to say. If it wasn't Washington, my mistake. But his cap hit is not too high. I think it is like $1,843,000. Obviously, you guys see on the screen, plus bonuses and incentives. He had 2 receptions, 17 yards, 8.5 yards per reception, and then 3 games last year, which means the Bengals didn't really believe in him. They drafted T. Higgins in the 2nd round. They got A.J. Green last year, or had him at least, and then obviously Tyler Boyd as well. So, the Bengals, I'm pretty sure, were done with him in like 2018. There were many people connecting John Ross to the Giants, and I really didn't believe it. But once he signed, I'm like, you know what? This isn't bad in terms of depth. He could be the 4th, the 5th receiver, the guy that really distracts defenders. He goes deep, and maybe the receivers running the short routes could get open and obviously wreak havoc. So John Ross, B- signing, and it's not like they committed to him for the next 4 years to be their number 1 wide receiver. It's a different story from Adoree Jackson, at least in my opinion, but John Ross, B-. Okay, so Devontae Booker, and I know a lot of Giants fans had problems with this signing. I really don't care about that, to be honest with you. But Devontae Booker does replace Wayne Gallman. He's a good pass blocker. I've heard a lot of good things from Las Vegas Raiders fans last year. 93 rushes, 423 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry, which is good, and then 4.9 yards per reception on 17 receptions, 84 yards. $2.5 million on the first year, and the second year, $3 million. And a lot of people were saying, why don't the Giants just draft a running back? You need a pass protector in the backfield. And if you draft a guy in the 5th round, the 6th round, whatever, and he's not a good pass blocker, and Saquon can't pass block, well, you're going to have a hard time on 3rd down. That's what a lot of people don't understand about football, guys. And, I understand the philosophy of just drafting a running back, but you need a veteran in the backfield. That's like the dynamic 3 for a perfect backfield. You need a star running back, I guess, in this situation, Saquon Barkley, a veteran like Devontae Booker, and then a draft pick. Maybe Kenneth Gainwell, maybe Michael Carter, maybe Elijah Mitchell. Any of those running backs could make a case for that. So Booker, I think, was a good signing. I really don't like the fact that the Giants fans were overreacting. Meanwhile, how many days later we got Kenny Golladay and all these other players? So I don't really have a problem with it. But nonetheless, Devontae Booker gets a B-plus signing as the backup running back. Reggie Ragland, the former Super Bowl champion himself. Now, he did that probably on special teams and rotational linebacker. A lot of Giants fans like this signing. I don't know what to think of it, to be honest, but for right now I'm giving it a B+. He had the connection with Jeremy Pruitt back at Alabama how many years ago. He played in 16 games last year for the Detroit Lions, 52 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 6 quarterback pressures. And obviously he played on the inside, so he's going to do both cover and try to blitz. He allowed 10 completions on 17 targets, 58.8 completion percentage, 65 yards, 2 touchdowns, 987K on the book for 2021. So basically, it's a proven contract. If he doesn't do good in training camp, he gets cut. So either way, I think the Giants could or should invest in a linebacker in the early rounds or whatever. As I said, it's BPA almost all the way through the draft, but if you get a coverage linebacker to compete with Reggie Ragland for a spot or something like that, it's going to be good. And obviously, Giants fans have been looking for that coverage linebacker, not just Dribble Peppers doing the job. Blake Martinez is the run stopper of the defense. So Reggie Ragland, just to be a rotational piece alongside. Now, he's not the, greatest at covering, of course. He's more the tackling type. But Reggie Ragland, it doesn't mean he's a bad piece. And I feel like, he didn't really get his chance with the Chiefs. And obviously the Lions, it was limited in production because of how bad the defense was. So B+ for Reggie Ragland. Colin Gillespie, I know a lot of Giants fans freaked out at the timing of this because they weren't signing anyone major like Kenny Golladay or anything else. I give him a C+ because honestly I don't know a lot about the guy. We already have a fullback. But on the bright side, $850K, you can't go wrong. If he does bad in training camp or the preseason, you just cut him. And at the same time, our special teams didn't go great at the end of the season, with how many, big returns we allowed in coverage, on punts, and stuff like that. It was a nightmare towards the end of the year. And that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, we struggled down the stretch. Special teams, it has an impact whether you guys like it or not. I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, the game changed because of this. But in the Bengals game, when Alex Erickson had that punt, if it wasn't for Leonard Williams and Jabal Sheard sacking and forcing Brandon Allen to fumble, we could have easily blamed that, on special teams because of that big return. And obviously the blocked punt that came into a safety against the Seahawks the next game, that was special teams related. So adding Colin Gillespie, now I would have to ask Texans fans and people who do breakdowns of this stuff, but if he's a good blocker in the backfield and he's good on special teams, I like it. But right now, I'll give it a C+. Austin Johnson, $3 million over 1 year. He was signed, or at least one of the first signed to a contract. I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and a lot of Giants fans weren't happy because of all the cap hit rising. Well, Dalvin Tomlinson's gone. He's probably going to see more of a role. Depends on how Joe Judge and Patrick Graham see him in that aspect and how he plays on the defensive line. Now, I give him a B- in 16 games, 18 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 quarterback hit, 2 quarterback pressures, and a sack. Now, you can't really judge a defensive tackle or a defensive interior in this case if we're talking about 3-4s based on sacks and tackles and like that because a lot of them get double-teamed. ODENIGBO got double-teamed. Dalvin Tomlinson got double-teamed a lot. Dexter Lawrence got double-teamed a lot. Leonard Williams got double-teamed a lot. Hence, the lackluster production among all the other reasons when he was with the Jets. So that's basically a reason right there, basically not to take stats just as the alone and the end-all. Film also is a factor as well. Once again, being double-teamed on the defensive line happens a lot. Just me knowing it obviously tells you that it happens a lot. It's common sense. If you know football, if you know what you're talking about, you get double-teamed on the defensive line a lot depending on how big you are. And we know Dexter Lawrence is a 340-pound man. He gets double-teamed a lot. If you're a big guy on the defensive line, you're getting double-teamed. I'm just going to tell you that right now in terms of pass blocking and run blocking. You're going to get double-teamed. And I like the production that I saw at Austin Johnson on like 20% of the snaps this year. And, as we pictured over here. He kind of got the easiest sack of the season against Jared Goff. But once again, Austin Johnson, a B- signing. Sure, people can freak out about the cap hit, but in terms of that, he's going to get an upgraded role, or most likely will get an upgraded role come training camp, come the preseason, come the regular season. So B- for Austin Johnson. So next up is Zach Fulton, and Zach Fulton is a guard from the Houston Texans that the Giants signed. I don't know the cap hit, so don't ask me to tell you. Probably I'll find out after this video is released, and then I'll tell you guys in the comments when the video is premiering or something like that. We'll see. But I give it a B-. He had a bad season last year, 11 sacks and 39 pressures in 16 games. That's not good, especially from the interior. If you're on the outside, if you're a tackle, that's more of an excuse. At the same time, it's still bad production. And Zach Fulton had that type of year. I believe he's almost 30, if he isn't already. And he's been in the league for years. He was drafted in the 6th round by the Kansas City Chiefs going back to 2014. Spent a couple of years there, then obviously moved on from the Chiefs and went to the Texans. Was there for a couple of years, and now he's with the Giants. So in the pivotal role, I see him, and there's narratives flying around with the analytics and all this other crapola that he's a better pass blocker, that he's a better run blocker. There's all types of narratives flying all over the place. From what I've seen, predominantly, is that he's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. And I would honestly rather that, and no disrespect to Saquon Barkley, Shane Lemieux, or Will Hernandez, it's just that I would rather a consistent pass blocker than a consistent run blocker if I had to choose one of them. This is a passing league, and in a year where we need to find out if Daniel Jones is not the answer, we need to put weapons and offensive linemen in front of him that will block. That's basically what I got to say about that. And as I said, no disrespect to Shane Lemieux, but we need to give Zach Fulton a couple of games to start at right guard. He's not just a Chad Slade you just have as a backup and then you start Lemieux. That is not what's happening here. What is happening here is, in my opinion, they will probably start Fulton for the first couple of games at right guard, then put Lemieux or Hernandez in, and then they'll figure out, where to go with that. They will probably rotate offensive linemen again, likely, but, I don't have a crystal ball in my hand, nor do I know what's going to happen in terms of injuries. So that's obviously something to keep tabs on. But anyway, Zach Fulton, B-. They probably signed him to a veteran minimum contract, if anything, or maybe like a $5 million over 1 year contract. But we'll see when the cap hit comes out. That is Zach Fulton, B- grade. So the next guy is Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph, I liked the signing initially. I still do, even though the foot injury obviously is making him get surgery. That kind of scared Giants fans, including myself. I'm like, this guy's such a good red zone target. And I was a little concerned, I'm not going to lie. And then he said in the press conference, I will need surgery, but I'm not going to miss football. This guy's a good red zone target. And what have the Giants struggled with the last couple of years doing on offense? They haven't scored in the red zone. And adding guys like Kenny Golladay and Kyle Rudolph kind of helped Daniel Jones in that aspect. You don't always have to run it into the end zone like they did how many times last year. And it wasn't a bad thing, but I'm just saying, a lot of the plays last year, like you take the second Eagles game, the pass to Golden Tate, the pass to Sterling Shepard, the pass to Darius Slayton. I'm pretty sure 2 of 3 of them resulted in touchdowns rushing wise. Daniel Jones, he got the effort and he threw it downfield to the near 5-yard line, or maybe even threw it in the red zone, and then they rushed it in afterwards. So in the stat sheet, on the stat sheet, it did not count towards Daniel Jones as a touchdown. That's never put on the stat sheet. That's something you have to watch film for. That's something you have to watch the eye test for. That's something you have to watch the game for. That's, the eye test right there. But definitely, if you have Kyle Rudolph and Kenny Golladay in the red zone, definitely Daniel Jones' touchdown production goes up if he cuts the fumbles, if he cuts the turnovers, and his rookie mistakes just go away. So that's basically what I have to say on Kyle Rudolph. His salary isn't that high for a tight end like him. He played in 12 games last year. 28 receptions, 334 yards, 11.9 yards per reception, and 1 touchdown. And he's coming off a foot injury, as I mentioned earlier, but he will probably miss no football. So I like this signing by the Giants. Helps out Daniel Jones in the red zone, and he's a decent blocker at the tight end position. Hopefully he helps Evan Ingram catch with his hands and not with his brain, because that's all in the mental game, if you get what I'm saying. But anyway, B+, Kyle Rudolph. So the final one is the GOAT, Casey KREITER. B minus. This is depth signing. This is basically all I have to say. 31% of special team snaps not being on kickoffs, but obviously, you know, being the long snapper on punts and just kicks, field goals, extra points, whatever. Played in 16 games, $1 million given to him this year. Obviously, it's a long snapper. You're not going to pay him $10 million over 2 years. That's not going to happen. He made one tackle. He made the Pro Bowl back in 2016. And he wasn't really the reason for the special team struggles. It was more the reason of the personnel and Riley Dixon as well. You know, towards season's end, the special teams kind of regressed. And that was, you know, it didn't play the biggest pivotal role in why we lost down the stretch. But it definitely played a small part in why games were closer than they should have been. Hence the Bengals game and hence the ending to that Bengals game. So anyway, Casey KREITER, definitely, I guess, familiarity on special teams. But anyway, it's a B minus for me on Casey KREITER. Alright, so basically to finish up this video, I don't know how long it took because I've been editing and doing some other stuff, so probably about 15 to 20 minutes. If it's more, I apologize because I know the attention span isn't really that long. But otherwise, I'm going to give the Giants about a B+ in this free agent period. They were not expected to do a lot of these things that they did. Signing Kenny Golladay, signing Leonard Williams to that massive extension, you know, signing some of the other players, you know, they were not expected to do that. But the issue I take with some of these, you know, some just the free agent period in general is I really wish that the Giants really would have pursued, you know, top tier free agents before they went on to the depth signings. Like, I don't have a problem with the Booker signing. I don't have a problem with Johnson signing. My thing with that is, you know, pursue that after, you know, the guys will be there. You know, maybe Devontae Booker won't be there at the end of free agency, like towards the end of the week. Austin Johnson will, in my opinion. But maybe pick up another backup running back. And I'm not saying Devontae Booker's not good, but I'm just saying, you know, you want to go after the big free agents. Then once they get signed or you lose a bid or whatever happens, you go down to the smaller free agents. So that's one thing I would change. And obviously the Adoree Jackson thing kind of, you know, bugs me out a little bit. It kind of makes me shiver because, you know, you're committing to a guy 3 years, $39 million, giving him all this cash, and he didn't necessarily perform the greatest in Tennessee so badly that they, you know, they cut him. And obviously take 2020 with a grain of salt, but also you have to watch the film. You have to watch, you know, the stats and look at the stats because, you know, he gave up, I think it was like 6 touchdowns in 2018, and he had a 55.8 completion percentage against, which isn't bad for cornerbacks, but, you know, 6 touchdowns, that does say a lot. And also passer rating, so you have to balance each one properly and obviously get your reaction from the opposing fan base. I got a mixed reaction from the Titans. So just to end this video, I give the Giants a B+. It wasn't the greatest offseason of them all. You know, it wasn't signing every guy on the market, but I do really appreciate what Joe Judge, Dave Gettleman, Kevin Abrams, and all the Giants front office did this offseason. It's not over yet, but this is the free agent part. I obviously will go over the draft part. We won't be really judging the draft for another couple of years, but in terms of like first reaction with picks and stuff. So anyway, thank you guys for supporting. Thank you guys for subscribing. Obviously, we're at 150 subscribers, actually 159 as of right now, this video being recorded. Keep going up to 200. I'll probably maybe do a giveaway or some type of a promotion for the 200 subscriber because we are growing really fast, more than I expected. So anyway, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. See you on the next video. Peace.